When I opened the freezer at -4 degrees F, I cried out. There was my daughter, 6 months old, that I had given to my husband. I quickly swooped her up and touched her cheek. She seemed chilly, and I could not hear her son. I fell down right then and there. Why is it now at this point? When I called my husband, he casually said our daughter was still doing okay. Lies. I made the decision to look into the man who had duped me and let our child suffer from this. What I found was unbelievable. I was so angry that I was determined to make my spouse suffer. Olivia is my name. I was a client and a restaurant owner when I met my husband, Michael, who is 5 years older than me. One of my regular hangouts with coworkers was the restaurant next to the publishing business where I work. Michael was constantly working hard in the restaurant, and I found myself appreciating that. We were reunited by fate, and our romance took off. When I was 34, we tied the knot and began our new life together in the restaurant's upstairs apartment. Not long after I moved in, I found out I was expecting. The look of excitement on Michael's face was priceless. Olivia, is that accurate? You succeeded. I will at last become a father. We shared ultrasound pictures from every checkup, looking forward to the day we would finally meet our child. I gave birth to our daughter, Mia, at the last minute after working virtually nonstop. We had a wonderful husband and a cute child, and even with the difficulties of being first-time parents, our lives was full of happiness. Since the birth of our child, Michael's work schedule has expanded, and during my maternity leave, I have handled the majority of household tasks and childcare. Though I knew there was nothing I could do about it, I was concerned for his welfare. Aren't you getting enough sleep? I inquired. In reply, he said, well, I'm managing somehow. At least he didn't have to commute. Our house was on the first floor of the eatery. He would leave every day for meetings, returning late at night, as there were plans for a new shop during this time. After closing his own business, he also went to other restaurants with staff members to brainstorm new menu items. He'd sleep until the very last minute before getting ready, so mornings were a blur. Unfortunately, he didn't have much time for Maya because of his hectic schedule. Hey, would you accompany me tomorrow on your day off to buy some children's clothes? No way, I'm worn out. On the day the store closes, is it not possible for me to sleep? My spouse appeared to be depressed due to his work-related exhaustion. He cried, enough, as our daughter fussed awake in the middle of the night, put an end to her wailing. In addition, he flung nearby things at us out of fury. Maya is still a baby. It can't be helped. I attempted to reason with him, but he wouldn't listen. After a while, he said, enough already. I'll spend the night at the store. He stormed out of the house after saying those things. I kept telling myself maybe Michael wouldn't feel the same way until circumstances with the new shop calmed down. Nevertheless, nothing appeared to have changed by the time our baby became 3 months old. My closest friend wanted me to attend her wedding, which was taking place in 3 months at a resort in the United States, according to a message I received at that time. I told her it to be challenging, but she persisted and even asked me to give a speech. I reasoned that it would be impossible to leave Mia with Michael. It would be a problem for my folks to travel here because they lived far away. Michael's aging parents were nearby, but I was hesitant to ask them to look after our infant. I'd love to see the bride and celebrate. I sighed as I looked at the invitation. Just then, my husband approached, glancing at what was in my hands. A friend's wedding? He asked. Yeah, I replied. It's in 3 months, but with Mia, I'm considering declining. Go ahead and attend, he said. I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" I asked. He replied, "The wedding. Since I'll take a break from the shop and take care of Mia, you should go." His unexpected suggestion left me speechless, and I couldn't respond immediately. "Are you sure?" Even though it's a resort location within the US, it's quite far. And if something happens, I won't be able to return quickly because of the flight. I expressed my concerns, but he reassured me. "It's okay. Take a break once in a while." Thank you. I had honest concerns about my husband, who hadn't been involved in taking care of our daughter much since she was born. Could he handle it alone for several days? However, I didn't want to dampen his enthusiasm, so I swallowed my words and asked him to do it. Over the next 3 months, I carefully taught Michael how to take care of Mia, considering his schedule. On the day I departed for my friend's wedding, I said, "Take care." Yeah. Leave it to me. Have a great time." I entrusted our daughter to him and left home as planned. However, upon arriving at the airport, an announcement informed me that the flight was canceled due to sudden bad weather. I contacted my friend to apologize for the last-minute cancellation. As I tried to call Michael to explain, there was no answer. Is he struggling with taking care of Mia? I wondered. Imagining that scene made me feel somewhat amused. I decided not to bother sending an email, assuming he wouldn't have time to read it, and returned home. When I arrived home, drenched in the sideways rain, neither my husband nor our daughter was in the living room or the bedroom. Yet, considering the stormy weather, it seemed unlikely they had gone out since it was the shop's scheduled day off. I ventured downstairs just to be sure. The atmosphere there was eerily quiet, and I couldn't sense anyone's presence. However, the light in the pantry, where he kept the freezer and other supplies, was on. Did someone forget to turn it off? As I stepped into the room, I noticed that the freezer door was slightly ajar, allowing cold air to escape. Concerned about the perishable items inside, I decided to check. When I opened the door, I screamed. I was met with a chilling sight. Our 6-month-old daughter, Mia, placed in a basket and stored in the freezer at a bone-chilling -4 degrees F. I immediately pulled her out and held her close. Mia, stay with me." Her face was icy, and she made no sound. Despair washed over me as I cradled her, but I knew I had to act quickly. I called an ambulance, and as they rushed me out to the emergency room, I silently prayed for her safety. Why did this happen? Where on earth is Michael? I called my husband repeatedly, but each time it went straight to voicemail without connecting. Frustrated, I decided to test the waters by sending him an email, intentionally asking about our daughter's well-being. To my surprise, I received a message saying, "Maya is happily playing. Enjoy the wedding." Yet at that very moment, our daughter was still receiving medical treatment behind that door. Liar. The rage I felt toward Michael was boiling inside me. It was then that I resolved to seek thorough revenge against him and took action. 3 days later, my husband returned home. Instead of heading for our house, he went straight to the shop. I watched his actions through the baby monitor camera I had installed in the shop from our upstairs residence. Without hesitation, he walked toward the room where the freezer was located. Through the camera, he seemed somewhat frantic. Whoa! His scream echoed all the way to the 2nd floor. I quietly followed him downstairs and stood behind him. He muttered something almost like a chant. "Why are you shouting so loudly? I can hear you all the way upstairs." Startled, he turned around when he noticed my presence. "Ha! Why?" he stammered. "Maya would be frightened." Was she behaving well? I asked, noticing our daughter's clothes behind him. As I leaned in to see Mia's face, Michael used his entire body to block me. I want to hold her quickly, so could you move aside? He stammered. No, she's sleeping now. It's better to leave her alone. But I couldn't wait, even just for her sleeping face. Ah, I screamed, and Michael awkwardly averted his eyes. What's going on? Where's Maya? I demanded. He hesitated. Well, you see, it was no wonder the bass in the freezer should have contained our daughter, but instead, there was a baby doll dressed in Mia's clothes. Of course, it was all my doing, a carefully orchestrated performance. Please bear with this exchange a little longer. This was just her plaything. Really? So where's Maya? She's being looked after. Yes, she's temporarily with someone else. Michael piled on the lies, desperately trying to salvage the situation. Then he looked at me, realization dawning on his face. Why are you here? Wasn't your return scheduled for the evening? If I returned home early, would it cause any problems? No, it's not like that. In reality, when I decided to take revenge on Michael, I had sent him an email. It stated that I would continue entrusting our daughter to him and that I would return home 3 days later in the evening. That email was a lie. On that day, the flight was canceled due to bad weather, so I couldn't go. That's why I immediately returned home. Huh? I didn't hear anything about that. Why didn't you contact me sooner? But it wasn't you who didn't answer. Even so, I also miss calls sometimes. Michael, who had been assertive until then, grew increasingly timid. Toward the end, he mumbled so softly that I could barely hear him. However, whether he answered the phone at that moment no longer mattered. My anger wasn't about such trivial matters. Claiming that you left Mia with someone else was a lie, right? After all, when I returned home, you weren't here, and our daughter was in the freezer. Did you know? And yet you even used such a doll to play a disgusting prank. Michael retorted, growing defensive as he approached me, but I stood my ground. Who's the real lowest of the low? When I asked you about Maya's well-being in that email, you said she was happily playing. Michael's face twisted in frustration, and yet at that moment, she was already at the hospital. You liar. What were you doing? Tears welled up as I confronted him, but he avoided eye contact, turning away in silence. Say something, I declared, thrusting a piece of paper in front of my husband's nose. Huh. You were out here, weren't you? The paper was a schedule for a trip. Well, it's because we suddenly had a meeting for the new shop at the hotel. Akem. But the reservation was made 3 months ago, right after I decided to attend my friend's wedding. As I checked the date, it aligned with the moment I committed to the wedding. Michael seemed to panic again, avoiding eye contact and falling silent. Moreover, you reserved a couple's plan at the hotel. Huh. I wasn't invited. It was something I saw on TV, a popular option. I thought it might benefit our shop, so I went for research. His feeble excuses only increased my suspicion. A faint sheen of sweat appeared on his forehead. Well, so you took your employees along? Yeah, like a company trip. I inwardly sighed at Michael's ever-changing explanations, but now it was showtime. I couldn't afford to drag out this exchange any longer. What part of this is a business trip? I confronted him, presenting several photos. They showed my husband posing happily with another woman at tourist spots and getting cozy in bathrobes at the hotel. Clearly, it wasn't a work-related trip. They looked like a couple on vacation. Michael pulled out his phone, glancing between the photos I'd handed him and his screen, looking flustered. "How did you get these pictures?" he demanded, showing me his phone. To his surprise, the same images I printed were displayed there. I smirked at him. "Did you forget that your phone's contents are accessible from a computer?" Michael's face fell as he remembered. You see, he'd previously helped create greeting cards for a customer using his phone data, including addresses. He'd linked his phone and computer, allowing me to access reservation details and even the photos sent by his affair partner from the tourist spots. Moreover, isn't she one of your employees? No wonder you confidently called it a company trip. Michael's affair partner was indeed a 28-year-old woman named Sophia who worked at his restaurant. To think I was being cheated on right under my nose. Honestly, it's quite shocking. It's hard to see what is under your nose. Michael tried to deflect with a joke, but there was no sign of remorse. I had no lingering feelings for a man like him. "I can't forgive what you did to Mia, more than your infidelity," I declared. "Well, if you've already found out, there's no helping it," Michael retorted, wearing a defiant smile. "I wanted to be with Sophia, and I planned to divorce you. As for child support, well, that's another matter. Paying for Maya is a bit much." He seemed reluctant to spend unnecessarily on child support. That's when he saw me agonizing over attending my friend's wedding. Michael had an idea. If he got rid of the daughter, all problems would vanish. So that day, he locked Mia in the freezer and set off confidently on his affair trip. His plan was to handle it before I returned home and find a clever excuse for her death. Well, it's all ruined because of you. I felt nothing but disgust as he grinned. "So where's Maya? When's the funeral?" "What are you talking about?" "I'm asking about her. What happened to her?" Michael's frustration was evident in his tone. "Maya is fine right now. My mom is with her at the hospital." "What? Is she alive?" He looked visibly disappointed. I had discovered Mia shortly after Michael left the house. Her face was cold, and she wasn't crying. I had braced myself for the worst, but while waiting for the ambulance, Mia opened her eyes, yawned, and cried loudly. It seemed she had slept soundly even in that situation. The hospital conducted thorough tests, but there were no abnormalities, considering her young age, just 6 months. They decided on a slightly longer hospital stay. The freezer had been slightly ajar, and I found her soon after Michael's departure. Mia's survival was a combination of luck, her age, the short time she was inside, and the fortunate circumstances. While I can say this now that she's safe, I'm still amazed by Mia's resilience, how she could sleep soundly anywhere undisturbed. "I'll report this incident to the police," I declared. "Huh? Why? She's safe now, so what's the problem?" Upon hearing the word police, his eyes widened, and he looked flustered. "That's not the issue. What you did could have cost our child's life. If things had gone wrong, damn it, why didn't the plane fly? If you had attended the wedding, my plan would have been foolproof." He defiantly paced around me, spitting as he spoke. It seemed he lacked any awareness of his wrongdoing. To make him acknowledge his guilt, I planned to involve the police and seek severe consequences. But first, I had another way to teach him a lesson regarding this matter. I'll have it written up in the magazine. The reputation of this shop will take a nosedive. "Wait a minute. That's unfair. It's an abuse of authority." Michael stopped in his tracks and grabbed my shoulder, but I shook off his hand with all my strength. "All I'm doing is my job. I used to work for a publishing company that was in charge of the magazine department. Perhaps you forgot. I used to go to my husband's restaurant, which was excellent, but not very well known, before we were married. As a result, I included it in an article for the E-Reporter's Hidden Gem Restaurants area, and it soon flourished. That's how I gained Michael's appreciation and finally started dating and got married to him. My spouse is quite nervous because he is aware of the consequences of being published in a magazine. I even have plans for a new branch, but I've come this far. Our sales are going to be horribly affected by a review like that, and I will be completely untrustworthy. Our way of life will suffer if that occurs, but I'm not aware of it. Mia, and you will be just as impacted, won't you? He kept trying to convince me, pleading with me. Hold on. I take it that you wanted to be with your partner in the affair and were intending to file for divorce from me. Then, it makes no difference what occurs to us. That, well, is the circumstances. Thus, the documentation is ready. Sign it right now. In addition, I'll be requesting child support and alimony. I waved the divorce decree in my spouse's face. He grabbed them from me and fixed his intense gaze on them. At last, acknowledging the truth, Michael abruptly started apologizing. I apologize. Please pardon me. Please keep this from the police. And I want you to think again about getting a divorce. He was so pathetic that even as he cried out in desperation, I couldn't help but think of my husband. We don't need the cops if an apology suffices. Live with your regrets and move on. I pulled him away with a forceful tone, and Michael fell to the ground sobbing. After that, my spouse and I formalized our divorce. I asked that he and his lover pay me a total of $20,000 for his affair. We also decided that he would pay our daughter's child support in full, at an amount of $63,000. My husband set up this incident out of fear of needless spending, knowing full well the severe repercussions he would face. Michael was questioned and the police were notified. He was then taken into custody and given a jail sentence. This episode was widely publicized in publications and made headlines in the news, even without my publishing an article. In addition, our daughter's freezer-keeping experience sparked a barrage of negative comments on social media, where I had posted details about the restaurant. The restaurant closed down quickly as a result of its sharp decline in reputation. My spouse had to pay for his acts because he had nowhere to go back to. Conversely, I began a new life with my kid. Michael had never had any parental responsibilities. Thus, his absence had no effect. Mia is having a happy childhood, and I'm going to keep trying to make her smile. How did you come upon this tale? Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Till then, enjoy our upcoming video.